Journalism and New Media Studies utilizes this media system for delivering all our programs. Come and join with us for exploring a new career and enhance your media skills.
Amendability provides flexibility and adaptability to constitutional framework to align with contemporary developments that makes Indian Constitution a living document. Considering this as a dynamic and responsive instrument, we will be discussing the topic of constitutional amendment and basic structure in today's Gyan Darshan teleconferencing session. Welcome everyone, I am Richa, research scholar, and I am here with Associate Professor Dr. D. Aanada sir. We are from the discipline of Political Science, School of Social Sciences, IGNOU. So this session is meant for the interested ones, course code MS003. संशोधन एक प्रक्रिया के साथ साथ परंपरा और प्रगति दोनों में संतुलन स्थापित करके अग्रसर होती है. यह सार्वजनिक भागीदारी और सर्व from the sir about the basic nature of the amendment, we will also learn as to why does the constitution necessitate amendments and how do these amendments contribute to the adaptability in evolving societal networks. Over to you, sir.
See, any constitution, any written constitution must change as per the needs of the society, at the same time as per the changing times. So there is nothing called sanctity in a constitution, because the constitution has to reflect the needs and necessities of the society. At the same time, the changed times, at the same time, socio-economic conditions will be changing today every time. So when the constitution makers are making the constitution, they cannot foresee each and everything. So obviously, invariably, in each and every written constitution, there will be provision for its amendment. So why? Because always the society will be very, very dynamic and social economic conditions will be changing day by day. And when the society will out a kind of a redundant, so definitely society will outgrow and overthrow it ultimately. So because of this reason, what happens actually, invariably there will be in any written constitution, there will be a amendment method. So what will happen through this amendment, the constitution, the competent body will be changing and giving a new dynamics. At the same time, it will be changed as per the society needs. It will be changed as per the socio-economic development, and it will be changed as per the necessities of the conditions, historical conditions and socio-economic conditions. Because of this, actually, what happens, the constitution will become a living document, a kind of a living document. So this is the basic thing which we have to understand. So every constitution to reflect the socio-economic condition, present conditions, it has invariably amendment procedure. So for that purpose, even the Constitution of India also, it has its own amendment procedure. This amendment procedure is nothing but it is enshrined in the Article 368 of the Indian Constitution. So that is the important thing which we have to understand for before going to the constitutional amendments.
Rightly perceived by the Granville Austin, and I'm quoting him, the amending process has proved itself one of the most ably conceived aspects of the Constitution. Though it appears complicated, it is merely diverse. With this understanding, let us learn the constitutional provisions of amendments, emphasizing on the three amendment process. Over to you, sir.
See, as I told you that 368, Article 368 of the Indian Constitution has the procedures, three procedures, not exactly the three procedures in the Indian Article 368. There are only two procedures in the Indian Constitution, in the Article 368 of the Indian Constitution. So when we look at these provisions, the things, there are three ways, actually, different methods for the different provisions of the Indian Constitution. The one such method is that actually the simple majority method, actually, as the Parliament pass the laws with a simple majority. So some of the certain provisions of the Indian Constitution can be amended by simple majority. So the Parliament, the bill can be initiated in the Parliament, either House of the Parliament, and with the simple majority method. Some of the provisions like ordinary provisions. We can see that there are so many other methods like under Article 3, creation of the new state, or alteration of the boundaries of the state, or changing the boundaries of the state. This kind of things, at the same time, salaries and amendments, all these kind of things can be amended with the simple majority of the Parliament. So the Parliament will be after passing this bill in both the houses separately, there is no provision for, there is a deadlock between the two houses. There is no provision for the joint session like any other normal ordinary bill. So the constitutional amendment bills, actually, each house of the Parliament has to pass separately. So then it will be presented to the President of India for his assent or the consent. So with the President of India's consent, actually, what happened, the Constitution stands amended as per the terms of the constitutional amendment bill. So with this method, actually, some of the provisions, which are not very important in the federal structure or any important in terms of the fundamental rights and directive principles or such kind of things, cannot be changed. The normal procedures like alteration of the boundaries, creation of the new states, or these amendments, or changing of the judges, or this public service commission members' retirement, all these things also we have to incorporate in the Indian Constitution, because in the Indian Constitution is very vast. At the same time, a slight policy change or political event also need to be incorporated. Because of this reason, with this simple majority method, this kind of provisions can be amended, actually. So when we look at the other provisions, other method is that the 2/3 majority of the Parliament, both the houses of the Parliament actually has to pass the constitutional amendment bill with the 2/3 majority. What it means here is that we have to understand that those are while present and voting, at the same time it should not be less than the majority of the Parliament house. It means that, for example, there is a 1/10 is the quorum. So very less members, if they pass with 2/3 majority, it will not be considered as a passed, actually, a constitutional amendment bill. It should not be less than the majority of the Parliament house also. So like that, actually, many provisions of the Indian Constitution can be amended. For example, the fundamental rights, Part 3 of the Indian Constitution, directive principles of the state policy, Part 3 of the Indian Constitution, and the other methods which are not done through the first amendment and the first method, at the same time the last method also, which are not covered under this first and last method, third method, also can be amended in this second method with the Parliament special majority method. So basically here the fundamental rights, which are very essential to the human liberties and development, and the directive principles which were given by the constitutional framers for the future policy makers on which direction they have to be, make their laws or legislation. So this kind of things can be amended through this special majority, the two-third majority of the parliament. Then when we look at the other provisions of the Indian Constitution, like when this parliament wanted to change the federal structure or the judicial powers and functions, so this kind of things can be amended with a two-third majority as a second method. At the same time, it requires at least half of the state legislative assemblies ratification. So it means that the bill will be passed by both the houses separately with the two-third majority. At the same time, after the passing of the bill, the two-third majority, then it will be presented to the state legislative assemblies. So the state legislative assemblies has to pass this, at least half of the state legislative assemblies to ratify this bill. So there is no time frame for this ratification of the state legislative assemblies in the constitution, but as and when this at least half of the state legislatures, 50% of the state legislatures ratify this amendment bill, then it will not be waiting for the other states consideration or consent actually. Then it will be presented and it will go to the President of India. Then with his consent, what happens that actually then the constitution stands amended as per the terms and conditions of the amendment bill. So this is the third method thing. The first method is not there in the Article 368 of the Constitution. Then the second and third methods, special majority method at the same time, then the special majority at the same time ratification of the state legislatures are incorporated in the Article 368 of the Indian Constitution. However, some of the scholars actually argued that the amendments made beyond the scope of the Article 368 are not considered to be considered as a constitutional amendment, but whatever the method we are following the things, whatever the method it has been amended, some of the provisions of the Constitution are amended. So because of that, we can consider these three methods also considered to be as a constitutional amendment. So in this way, that with this third method, like for example, the where we are amending this federal structure, the 7th schedule of the Indian Constitution. When we are amending the 7th schedule in the Indian Constitution, which contains the three lists, the union list, state list, and concurrent list, where the federal division of powers are there, these things actually requires even the state legislature ratification, at least half of the state legislature ratification. Apart from that, when there is a Supreme Court or High Court, the judicial powers and functions, judiciary powers and functions, if anything which is affecting the federal structure and all, then it requires given these three different methods for amending the three different clauses. So with some simple majority, some clauses can be amended. Some of the clauses can be amended with the simple special majority, that is two-third majority, and some of the provisions of the Indian Constitution can be amended with the special majority, but at the same time, at least half of the state legislatures ratification. So these three methods are there in the Indian Constitution for its amendment.
अभी हमने 3 संशोधन प्रक्रिया उदाहरण सहित समझा, जिसमें सरल बहुमत और विशेष बहुमत शामिल है। हमने विशेष बहुमत में यह भी जाना कि कब उपस्थित और मतदान करने वाले सदस्यों की 2/3 बहुमत अनिवार्य है और कब इसके साथ साथ 50% राज्यों द्वारा अनुसमर्थन भी। Now, the critical question arises as how to perceive the impact of rushed amendments on its stability and effectiveness. Also, what potential concerns arises by the misuse of amending powers. We will know this just in very brief, and we'll move to the basic structure doctrine. Over to you, sir.
So there are many of the Indian, as I told you earlier, Indian Constitution simple changes. Suppose, for example, 41st Constitutional Amendment just changes the retirement age of the judges. So like that, Sindhi, as we have added the into the official languages in the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution. Dadra, Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu, this kind of territory also we have incorporated. All these changes also requires the constitutional amendment. But this is a simple and very minute constitutional amendment. There are no controversies in this regard. But however, some of the constitutional amendments are very, very drastic and change the many features of the Indian Constitution. And there is a lot of controversies. At At the same time, some of the amendments, like 39th Constitutional Amendment, is purely a political amendment to just simply because to protect the when the judiciary has interpreted, and at the same time Allahabad High Court declared that Indira Gandhi election is illegal in the Narayan case. The constitution was amended through the 39th Constitutional Amendment Act, and the power of the judiciary was taken away, and the dispute, suppose if there is an election dispute of the Prime Minister, President or the Speaker, this was kept under the purview of the Parliament of India. But this was later struck down. That is a different issue. This kind of amendments become very, very controversial. At the same time, 42nd Constitutional Amendment and to some extent even the 44th Constitutional Amendment, this become changed, the drastic changes they brought in, and because of this kind of things, there was so much criticism on that, and people say that the Parliament is abusing the amendment power. Because of that only, people actually started arguing, and also some of the scholars conceived that because this basic structure doctrine also came into existence because of this abuse of the amendment power. So that we have to understand here.
हमने संशोधनों के दुरुपयोग का प्रभाव समझा, जिनमें राज्य विधान मंडलों की सीमाएं, राजनीतिक हेरफेर का खतरा, कानूनी जटिलता, संवैधानिक स्थिरता का चरण आदि शामिल थे. Moving forward, now we will understand the concept of basic structure. There is no mention of basic structure in the Indian Constitution, but there are many landmark cases and its judicial pronouncements which shapes the doctrine of basic structure. Sir, please elaborate upon these landmark cases and judicial pronouncements and the happenings between them.
Basically, to understand this basic structure, we have to go into several cases. I will try to discuss briefly of these cases like Sankari Prasad case, Sajjan Singh case, Golaknath case and Kesavananda Bharati case, where the judiciary has actually pronounced this basic structure doctrine. So when we got freedom, we have so many issues like socio-economic issues were there, inequalities were there, die-hard realities. These are the die-hard realities actually. So because of this actually, when we got the freedom, we cannot leave the inequalities, discrimination and poverty, illiteracy, all these things. We have to restructure the society and reform the society for that purpose. So in these circumstances, actually, the society has to be restructured and reformed into an egalitarian and democratic manner. So because of this, actually, when we got the freedom, all these legislatures started making the socio-economic upliftment upliftment of downtrodden sections. There are so many enactments, so many legislations has actually started. For example, the reservations for the downtrodden sections. At the same time, land ceilings, because if the land is under the few people control, the control of the few people, then there is we cannot establish an economic democracy. So for that purpose, land ceiling acts also came into existence. Apart from that, reservation bills, reservations for the downtrodden sections in private and then public institutions as came in. So these are all actually immediately when this came in. Actually, there have been inherent contradictions between some of the provisions of the Indian Constitution as came up. For example, Article 31 of the Indian Constitution gives the right for gives fundamental right. It is revealed later, that is different issue. At that time, there was a fundamental right to property. At the same time, Article 14, equality and provisions were there. So people started questioning that these reservation laws are actually abridging the fundamental right under Article 14 of the Indian Constitution, which gives the right to equality. At the same time, these jamindars and landlords also started questioning that these land ceiling acts are taking away their fundamental right under Article 31 of the Indian Constitution. So in these circumstances, the first Constitutional Amendment Act was actually enacted, and they added sub-clauses to the equality principles. At the same time, Article 19, even liberties, many things actually has been to reinterpret, and sub-clauses even in the Article 31 also is included. And also the first Constitutional Amendment Act, actually what it did, it has added the 9th schedule to the Indian Constitution. All these land ceiling acts and Jamindari abolition act, this kind of things are incorporated in the 9th schedule of the Indian Constitution, and said that this 9th schedule is beyond the purview of the judicial review. So the judiciary cannot intervene in the provisions which are incorporated in the ninth schedule of the Indian Constitution. So that way actually these land sealing acts are protected. So in this, under this one of the provision of Indian Constitution, that is Article 13 subclause 2, there is a it says that that the Parliament cannot take away or abridge the fundamental rights and not make any law. This three letters word law is the actually the controversy at the same time interpretation of this law, which comes under the law, is the basic problem here. So Article 13 subclause 2 says that the Parliament cannot make any law which can take away or abridge the fundamental rights under Part 3 of the Indian Constitution. So this question came up actually in the Sankari Prasad case in first time. So the Supreme Court said that this constituent amendment, when the amendments are made, actually this is the amendment power, constituent power. It is not ordinary lawmaking power. So it said that, so law means here only the ordinary lawmaking power, but constituent power, which is under the Article 360 of the Indian Constitution, is not a law within the purview of the Article 13 subclause 2. The same was actually reaffirmed by the Supreme Court in even the Sajjan Singh case. But in the Sajjan Singh case, what happened? The minority judges said that they have expressed the doubts whether the constitutional amendments are also comes under the this article purview, Article 13 subclause purview or not. This was the things. So these doubts, this minority and dissenting judgment actually raised so many litigations in the later given the rise of these litigations in the later period. In 1967, actually, what happened in Golaknath case, the Supreme Court said that the minority judgment or dissenting judges' opinion has been actually is the major thing here. We have to understand that the Parliament has no power to amend, take away these fundamental rights. At the same time, there are another issues has also come up that under Article 368, the heading was there, procedure for the amendment of the Constitution. Then they said that in the article, in the Golaknath case, they said that it says the Article 368 says only the procedure for amendment of the Constitution, but power is not there in that. Actually, the power is derived by the legislature under Article 245, 246 and 248, which is the legislative power. So that way it said that the Parliament, because Parliament cannot take away or abridge the fundamental rights, so Parliament cannot amend the Part 3 are the fundamental rights. So that was the major intention of essence of the Golaknath judgment. So in these circumstances, what happened? It is the Parliament did not accept it. Parliament wanted to establish its supremacy. Then it has come up with 24th Constitutional Amendment Act. The 24th Constitutional Amendment Act actually changed the title of the Indian, this Article 368, stating that the Parliament power to amend the Constitution and procedure therefore. So it is reiterating the procedure power is also there in this. At the same time, adding the subclauses to the Article 13, it says that this Parliament, this amendment are not coming under the purview of the Article 13 subclause 2 law. So these are the major changes it has made. And also the 29th Constitutional Amendment Act, the Kerala Land Reform Act acts also came into, again it was questioned in Kesavananda Bharati case. So in Kesavananda Bharati case, what was happened actually, the Supreme Court reversed its decision in the Golaknath case. Decision has been reversed and said that Parliament amendment power is a constituent power and it is not falling under the purview of Article 13 subclause 2. So the Constitution has can be amended. The Parliament has every power to amend the Indian Constitution, but at the same time, there are split judgments. 13-member judges, 13-member bench actually heard this case, and the 6 members has one opinion, and 6 members has one opinion, and the another one member has one opinion. Basically, the 6 plus 1, the majority judgment. Actually, the essence of this majority judgment is that the Parliament has the power under Article 368 of the Indian Constitution. It has the power also under Article 368 of the Indian Constitution. It can alter, change any of the Indian Constitution, but at the same time, this constituent amendment power is not an absolute power. It is not absolute. It cannot destroy or demolish the basic features or the basic structure of the Constitution. So it has the power to amend the constitution, any part of the provisions, but at the same time its power is limited. It is that it cannot destroy or deface completely the basic features or basic structure of the Indian constitution. However, what is the basic structure? What are the basic features? Actually, features the court did not define, but it differs from case to case. Actually, many times actually Supreme Court interpreted that like parliamentary supremacy, parliamentary democracy. At the same time, the federal structure, fundamental rights. These are some of the basic secularism, some of the basic features of the Indian Constitution. So at present, the Parliament has a very power to amend the Indian Constitution, but it has the limitations, the implied limitations given by the judiciary. That is, that it cannot take away or destroy, completely deface the federal basic features or basic structure of the Indian Constitution.
हमने कहानी के स्वरूप, ऐतिहासिक मामले और उनमें दिए गए न्यायिक व्याख्या से बुनियादी संरचना सिद्धांत, दैट इज बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर डॉक्ट्रिन, का आकार विकसित हुए देखा। हमने इसके महत्व पे भी चर्चा की और कई सारे अमेंडमेंट्स को डिस्कस किया, बहुत सारे केसेस को डिस्कस किया। और इसी के साथ मैं कह सकती हूँ दैट आई होप यू ऑल हैड ग्रेट इनसाइट्स। सो वी थैंक यू